So today we're going to talk about a single car bomb that did so much more than just shatter the peace at a historic landmark. It actually unpacked a new, really sophisticated form of terrorism, one that stretched from university campuses in India all the way to the global stage. Let's dig in and trace the fallout.
It all kicked off on one specific day, November 10th, 2025, a date that would, believe it or not, end up redefining the fault lines of modern terrorism.
And the target? Well, it was Delhi's iconic Red Fort, a huge symbol of India's history and its sovereignty. You see, an attack here wasn't just an attack on people, it was a direct hit on the nation's identity.
And just like that, a massive car bomb goes off, shattering the calm, killing several people and injuring dozens more. But, the immediate carnage? That was just the first ripple in a story that was about to get way, way more complex.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to follow the evidence, tracing these shockwaves from this one single blast through a pretty stunning domestic investigation and all the way onto a shifting global chessboard.
So India's National Investigation Agency, the NIA, steps in. And what they started to uncover, it was way more alarming than your typical terror plot.
And pretty quickly, investigators had a name for this new threat: white-collar terror. I mean, think about it. The masterminds weren't your usual suspects. No, these were highly educated doctors from Jammu and Kashmir, and they were operating out of a university just outside the capital.
And the sheer scale of what they were planning was just staggering. The NIA finds this massive stockpile. We're talking nearly 3,000 kilograms of ammonium nitrate. A cache that big tells you one thing for sure. This was no one-off attack. This was a long-term, sophisticated operation. The trail then leads them straight to Al-Falah University, and get this, to a specific room. Room 13 in Hostel 17. This was supposedly their nerve center, and even crazier, a diary they found suggested they'd been at this for 2 whole years.
Okay, so the government's reaction? It was swift and it was strong. Home Minister Amit Shah came out and declared a zero-tolerance policy, vowing to bring every last mastermind to justice. This wasn't just talk. It signaled a real, fundamental shift in how the country was going to confront this new, educated brand of terror.
But here's where the story takes a huge turn. The investigation quickly showed this wasn't just a domestic problem. Oh no. The threads of this plot stretched way beyond India's borders, pulling the whole region into this new, tangled web of geopolitical tension.
The suspects, right, including the alleged bomber, Dr. Umar Unabi, they weren't just from Kashmir. They had clear links to well-known Pakistan-based militant groups, Jaish-e-Mohammed and Ansar Ghazwat-ul-Hind. It just highlighted this persistent, tough challenge of cross-border terrorism.
But wait, the trail didn't even stop in Pakistan. Investigators discovered that handlers for the group were actually based in Turkey, a country the suspects had traveled to for planning. So what does India do? It makes a classic geopolitical chess move. It starts getting cozier with Turkey's regional rivals, Greece and Armenia. And then you've got the international reaction, which caused its own friction. So the US puts out a pretty standard condolence for the Delhi blast. But when people in the Indian media compared it to how the US responded to other incidents in the region, well, the tone felt different, more forceful for others. And that kicked off this huge national debate about whether its allies were really equal partners in the fight against terror.
But maybe the most disturbing ripple of all was the one felt right back at home. And it revealed some pretty deep cracks in society. The threat of radicalization wasn't just in some far-off conflict zone anymore. It had moved right onto university campuses.
And that brings us to a really critical question, right? How on earth does a place of learning, a university, become the alleged hub for a terror plot as sophisticated as this one?
Well, for Al-Falah University, the fallout was immediate and intense. They were being investigated not just for security, but for everything. They were facing accusations of fake accreditation, sketchy foreign funding, and while the university denied any part in it, the whole thing just showed how vulnerable our educational institutions have become. So when you piece all of this together, the domestic plot, the global connections, the impact on society, it becomes crystal clear. This was way more than just an attack. It was a complete paradigm shift for India's national security. I mean, just look at how this whole threat evolved. It starts as a violent local terror attack, but that leads to the discovery of this sophisticated white-collar plot. Then that reveals these shocking connections to Pakistan and Turkey,
And finally, it all leads to this disturbing realization. Radicalization is happening in a place we never expected, right on campus, among the best and brightest.
You know, the Red Fort blast proved that terrorism is getting smarter, more educated, and more woven into the fabric of our society. And that leaves all of us with one really urgent question. As terror evolves, can our defenses possibly evolve faster?